Arizona straight to the line. There's the snap to Murray. Murray looks left, pumps once, looking. A lot of time. Now he throws, and it's intercepted by the Lions. Picked off down the left sideline. Aurier picks up a block at the 30, 25, 20, Amani 10, 5, and he's spun out of bounds right there. I see you, 24. I see you.
Welcome to the Twentyman in the Huddle podcast. I am your host, Tim Twentyman, and I am joined by the Hall of Famer, Mike O'Hara.
Everybody knows Mike.
And obviously exciting time here in Allen Park with rookie minicamp, Mike, this weekend. The rookies were all here, 29 of them total, including Detroit's 8 draft picks. Now, obviously you have to take what you see out there with a little bit of a grain of salt because it's shorts, there's no pads, there's not a lot of contact, but it's football, and you get to see these guys on the field for the first time, and that's exciting. And then next week and the week after, they'll join the vets, and then we'll get. It'll start to look a lot more like football. But a couple quick things, because we talked to Dan Campbell before the minicamp practice today too, and just a couple newsy items. Joint practices in Indy. Dan talked last year about just obviously being a new head coach and learning, and he tried to set up joint practices too late in the offseason process last year, so the Lions didn't have any. They will have a couple ahead of their Week 2 game in Indianapolis against the Colts. And Mike, just what's the benefit of those joint practices in the dog days of August?
Well, I think the benefit is that you give your team a lift. That's part of it, and also probably even more than that is that you get a couple of days of practice against guys that you're not used to practicing against. And look, you can call this like grandfather plays and all that other, but you're going against the same. For example, you're a pass rushing defensive end going against the same left tackle for 2 weeks after you know each other.
Yeah. And
so you get fresher work and you really get a truer feeling of your players. Now, it's not all out in the practices, and they can rein it in, the coaching staff on both sides, anytime you want. But I think it sharpens you up a little bit, and it takes away some of the monotony of training camp.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. And we've done a number of these.
Sure.
We went out to California with the Raiders. And
that was fun.
Yeah, we've done some with the Colts, went to Pittsburgh and did those there. And there is an extra bit of juice, right? Mm-hmm. You just kind of sense it, not only in the crowd, but just with the guys, too. Part of it's, I think, what you mentioned, just it's something different. And I think coaches look at that a little bit different, too, because I agree with you. I think coaches kind of can sense when two players know each other really, really well. But this is the NFL. You got a new guy every week, a new challenge, right? And so I think you can approach this as, hey, this is a new challenge for these guys. And I think the coaches maybe weigh those joint practices a little more than they do a normal Thursday practice in the third week of training camp against the same guys. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I also think you have a way to sort of take the practices in a different direction if you want to. For example, you could maybe say to the other, hey, can we run that again? But you can't do too much of it. You can't run the same play 3 or 4 times. But let's just, for example, the Lions are running a pass rush drill, and your guy just can't quite get it and say, hey, could you run that again? Well, you can't do that in a preseason game. Obviously, you can't do it in a regular season game, but it gives you a chance to just sort of regulate the practice and manage it the way you want to.
I think one important part of that, too, is just getting a little bit more competition. They've obviously done away with one of the preseason games, and
Sure.
So this is an opportunity to get 2 more really competitive practice. So on top of the 3 preseason games, you get 2 competitive joint practices. That's 5 situations where that's good evaluating tape for coaches.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And plus, especially when you go on the road in training camp, kind of build a little bit of a camaraderie among your guys. And look, training camp, it's I wouldn't call it a necessary evil because there's nothing evil about it, but it's something you have to do. And I think after a certain amount of time, the guys who've been around a while, I don't think they hate it, but I don't think they love it either. So this whole thing kind of gets them out, gets them in a new environment, and kind of it adds something to it that's not there when you're at home the day after day after day. Same place, same scene, same food, same everything.
Saturday was also our first time talking with Dan since the schedule came out. And, obviously, I think there was a tweet by NFL or somebody over the weekend, the Detroit Lions are the only team in the NFL without a primetime game. And Dan Campbell was asked about that. And his opinion is kind of like mine. Not only am I selfishly love the fact that I can be home by 8 o'clock on a road game, but I think for Dan Campbell, it's that way for him too. These guys are creatures of habit, and to have a 1 o'clock game, when they're done with the game, I mean, they're already shifting to the next opponent. They're looking ahead, and this gives Dan Campbell and the coaching staff an opportunity. And he said it. Look, we play the game. We don't have to sit in a hotel all day. We can just go play the game and then turn our focus to the next week. He loves that.
Just a minute. Now, I'm not going to say this to you, but I would like to just say to Coach Campbell, Coach, would you rather be 3-13-1 and have no primetime games, or would you like to be 11-7 or 6 or whatever it is, and have 2 or 3 or 4?
Well, sure, it's the rather. Sure, it's the rather.
And be slightly inconvenienced. Oh my God. Okay. So yeah, you're making the most out of what is not a bad situation.
Well, they were already 3-13. You weren't changing that with how this schedule went, Michael.
Well, then do it again.
No,
okay.
Let's not do it again.
You're 3-0. Okay, and okay, guys, hold on a second. We're gonna have to get up.
Okay. I see your point.
We're going to have to get up late.
Dan Campbell was making the most out of a bad situation.
And he's right.
He's right.
He's right. Yeah. But you know what? I think probably the coaches, they think less about the schedule than we do. Look, I covered players like a guy named Kevin Glover, a 3-time Pro Bowl center. I'd ask about that. He said, all I know is who we're playing this week. He had no idea who they were playing in 2 weeks. Didn't care.
Player mentality, right?
Player mentality.
Next one up.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into rookie minicamp because that was the big story over the weekend. We finally got to see some of these guys. Let's go through our 8 draft picks first. I know you had an observation Saturday on Aidan Hutchinson. You were watching him pretty close. Obviously, all eyes on the number 2 overall pick. Looked pretty good in that 97 Honolulu blue, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't even. Who wore 97 before?
Williams.
Well, Nick Williams. I thought so. Yeah, for some reason I thought it was 91. I was afraid to be wrong. Didn't want to blurt it out.
Well, he was 97. He was wearing white out there, actually, not Honolulu blue like all the other defenders. And I think the one thing I noticed watching him in some individual drills and a little bit in team stuff, the one thing that jumped out to me, Mike, and I don't know if it did for you too, is that first step. He really had an explosive first step when with what I saw, and we got to wait till pads come on and obviously in contact and all that other stuff, but he just looks the part, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's 6'7", 260, 270, something like that. Yeah, and I would agree. He's awfully angular, little linear build or whatever you want to call it, and I want to see how that works. When veteran offensive tackles, can they get under his pads and just keep bumping him away, not letting him get to the quarterback? Now, he was drafted 2nd overall and should have been 1st overall for a reason. Okay.
Wow.
And a lot of that will take care of itself.
There you go, you Trayvon Walker fans out there.
Trayvon Walker, nothing. That's in fact I wouldn't if it hadn't been Aidan Hutchinson. I liked the guy from Oregon. I really did because he had a little bit of sizzle, a little bit different. That's what I liked. Thibodeau, right? Yeah. Kayvon Thibodeau. That was my guy.
And I like Jermaine Johnson. So look, we all had our.
Yeah, but your guy you liked was in the 20s. Mine was 5th.
I'm telling you what. The Jets got a deal there. I'm just saying. I'm throwing it out there. Back to Aidan Hutchinson. But, one thing I noticed, too, is they used him on both sides.
Yeah, great point.
And so he was right, left. And that's the biggest thing that we talk about all the time with him. And that was the talk leading into the draft was just his versatility, right?
Is there such a thing as being ambidextrous in the pass rush? In other words, you can do it as well left-handed as you can, right? It's sort of like being a switch hitter in baseball, I guess.
No, that's a good point.
Because if you line up, you've always got an advantage.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you have, maybe you're stronger on the right side than you are on the left side. But can you do both and take advantage of
matchups,
of the offensive line and their matchups? Absolutely, sure.
One thing I can't wait to see too when they join the vets is he's going to get his workout with Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, right? I mean that whole iron sharpens iron thing. I mean, and Matt Nelson, that's a good one too.
There's no rust.
Those guys are going to make him better if he wants to make plays in practice. I mean, those are 2 pretty darn good tackles to sharpen your skills against.
Yeah, and I don't cover a lot of, I don't watch a lot of college football. They don't cover it obviously anymore. But one thing about him when I watched a couple of the Michigan games, and one of them, of course, was the Ohio State game. Let's focus on that and not Georgia. But the thing about him, he seems to have a desire to be good, and there's nothing wrong with that desire to be noticed as good. See,
yeah,
I like that. I really do. I like guys who want to be special.
For sure.
And He's got a shot at that too.
And one guy who could be very special offensively for Lions is Jameson Williams.
Yep.
The number, the first round pick Lions use 2 picks to move back into the first round, take him at number 12. Now, obviously, he's coming off the ACL injury, so we didn't see him, practicing at rookie minicamp. But, one thing I noticed about him was he might have been the number 1 cheerleader on that field on Saturday because, every time a wide receiver made a play, that was him. He had a football in his hand, and I think it was for 2 hours. I never saw him drop the football.
I don't either.
He was playing catch at one point with Randall L. He was, doing one of these and catching with Dan Campbell at some point. He's finding a way to be involved, and I like that about a guy who's obviously hurt, working his way back, expected to be a huge part of this offense, but finding a way to be a part when you can't be a part on the field.
Yeah, there's sort of, and this is a good thing, I think, there's sort of, I'm here. I'm here, guys. Don't forget me. I'm here. I'm going to be out there. One of the questions I asked him is just, what is it just like to be on this field, out on that grass? And he gave a really good answer about it. It just meant, he said, I think it's something, he said, it meant everything to me or something like that. Now, look, there are things down the line that are going to mean a lot more than just standing out there on the practice field. But, look, I love the way that the Detroit Lions moved up in the draft to get him. This idea of building draft picks, let's build players. Okay?
Yeah, but I like that point by you. This is grit, right? Sizzle. Yeah. That's what they're talking about. And that was a guy that didn't just sit back and watch.
Right.
He was involved in it. The kid from Central Michigan, Pimpleton, made a really nice play and went down the field. And, you see Jameson go, 10, 15 yards walking that way to be the first one to smack him a 5. I like that. I just like that. He wasn't hurt, sulking, woe is me, I'll watch. He really found a way to be involved, and I love that.
Hey, when you think about this, and I really just, when you brought this up, I just thought of it. This is his 3rd team in 3 years, so it's not like he's got guys he's played with all his life. He was it 2 years ago? He was at Ohio State. Last year he was at Alabama, and here's just with the Detroit Lions. So he seems to be, just based on what we've seen with our own 2 eyes, is a guy who wants to be a joiner, who wants to be part of a team. And I like that. That's pretty cool.
I like that too. Yeah. All right, let's move on to the second round. Josh Paschal, another versatile player, different kind of body type than Aidan Hutchinson. A little bit bigger, a little bit thicker, wider, especially in the legs, in the butt. But a guy that the Lions want to eventually rush him from the inside.
Yeah.
He was at the combine at 268 pounds. We talked to Todd Wash last week or the week before just about what he sees in these guys, and he said, look, we hope he puts on that good weight, gets up to 280ish, and then he can be a rush guy inside. I noticed, and maybe you saw him rush from the interior, but I just saw him on the outside today, so I think that's going to be the plan, at least initially, is to rush him out wide and then to eventually maybe move him in or do some NASCAR packages, some stuff where he can go in. But first day of minicamp, first open rookie practice, I saw him on the outside almost exclusively.
Well, they need the NASCAR rush, or they had you go too long. Okay, so let's get the guys in there and get on the quarterback's get on his back. But yeah, I agree with you on that. The one thing you saw was he's got that. I'm not going to demonstrate there. I'd try to, but just the rip move, the quick move, and get inside. And really, look, the outside pass rush, the edge rushers, that's great, but nothing aggravates a quarterback more or takes him out of his game than a guy getting right in his face, because you can't get away from it. And you'll see guys leaning back and throwing the ball instead of being able to plant and drive the ball.
And the last time we saw this Lions defense really, really good, Mike, was 2014 when Ndamukong Suh was doing that, right? And during that stretch when Ndamukong was really Ndamukong, that's what he provided, that rush up the middle. And look, we've talked to Matthew Stafford a bunch of times at his locker, and he even admitted,
oh yeah,
the worst rush you can get as a quarterback is that up the middle, because what they want to do is they want to see that on the outside, step up in the pocket and deliver the football.
And Ziggy Ansah, too, when he really broke out that year with his 15 sacks.
And so they had it on the edge and the middle, and that was the difference. And, obviously they were historically good against the run, but when you can get a combination of rush inside and on the edge, it's just a difference maker for a quarterback. If you have two rush ends, it's hard to still neutralize those guys, but they can be neutralized. You can make them run wide, and you can step up as a quarterback. You can't go anywhere with a guy coming straight in your face.
No, and if you get there's one in Ndamukong Suh, really.
Right?
Well,
and I don't want to, say that Paschal's in Ndamukong Suh, because that's not fair on that kid. But what we're talking about is getting that kind of interior rush. You hope Levi Onwuzurike takes that next step and can give them something there. I think Aleem McNeil is kind of that run stuffer. I think he can do it a little bit, but you're not expecting him to be a double-digit sack guy. But with Levi and Josh, I think maybe there's the possibility there, Mike, that they can really give you something from the interior.
Well, and a couple things about Levi. Levi, I think, is by any measure, his rookie season was disappointing.
Sure.
Probably more for him than anybody else. But when I really looked at his stats, he played about 30% or about 35 or 36% of the snaps, about 1/3 of the snaps. We had one quarterback sack and I think 2 quarterback hits or something like that. That's not the production that
Didn't have
wanted.
the impact, no.
But
he was hurt.
But absolutely, he was hurt to a point where he had to stand up during the team the position meetings because it hurt to sit down. He couldn't stay seated for a period of time. And first of all, what a way to live!
I know, right?
And what a way to play football.
Not a good way to play
I don't
football.
think so, but I think that what Levi said about the switch to the 4-3. He said, "Look, that's what us guys wanted. That's what we're used to playing in college. Now, this isn't college, but the guys want to be turned loose and go get the quarterback. And I think that'll." If they've got the assets to get it done, enough pass rushers, linebackers, whatever you want to call them, the guys to fill the slots that you need, then I think it's a great step up. And maybe we'll get back to the old fearsome foursome silver rush days of where they really were getting 50 sacks a year.
I like it. And the Lions moved back cautiously, because they wanted Josh Paschal. They were a little worried that moving too far back when they traded up to get Jameson Williams, and they went from the 34th pick to the 46th pick. They were a little worried that he wouldn't be there. They still got their guy, and let's hope he can give them something from the interior.
Yeah, and Pro Football Focus, by the way, said that the Detroit Lions, they had four teams that did the best the 4 units that improved the most in the draft. Number 1 was the Detroit Lions defensive line.
I can't argue with it.
That unit, the front 4.
All right, let's shift to the back end of that defense. Kerby Joseph, 3rd round out of Illinois.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting Saturday when I watched him for a little bit. First off, I like the body build. I think he can come up and he'll be able to hit people. I think he's got to work on his coverage stuff a little bit. I think sometimes, and I think more it was probably just learning scheme. When you're thinking about the game so much, you play a little bit slower. I thought he was a step slow here and there, and AG was on him a little bit. But I think that'll get cleared up when he gets more comfortable with the scheme. But what I did like about him is I thought he played more of the strong safety role a little bit on Saturday, and he played some nickel too, which I think is interesting. And you've got to like that kind of versatility from a safety, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't see much of him because I was watching other guys at the time. But and I wouldn't want AG on me, by the way, because he knows how to get on you.
He does know how to get on you.
What did he say once last year we were talking about him? He said, and especially a rookie,
Yeah.
I'll talk to them a little different, probably a lot different.
Yeah.
But not in a mean way out there, by the way. Just to get the best out of these players,
100%.
The best he can. That's what makes him such a great coach. But
Aubrey Pleasant's the same way.
Yeah, but I agree with you. Yeah, that's they need that. But maybe the player they signed in the offseason from the Baltimore Ravens,
Sean Elliott, who was
Sean
on my first
Elliott,
podcast talking about the schedule. Yeah, great
well,
guy.
For everything we hear, he likes to hit, and there's been a soft spot in my opinion.
Yeah.
In the last 2, 3, 4 years.
The Lions certainly need, Kerby to be a player, though. I mean, because you obviously think you got Tracy Walker, obviously, at one spot. And I think Deshaun Elliott, we can both agree, is the favorite there. But if something happens to one of those guys, it's a pretty thin safety group. And I think that was the reason why, Brad Holmes, went and got Kerby, is because he kind of fit that versatility they like at the safety position, but they just need depth and guys there too. So I think he's a guy that you're not talking about like he needs to develop to a point where he plays quickly, but he needs to develop to a point that if he's asked to come in and play, that might be an important ask if something happens to one of those guys ahead of him. Just because of the lack of depth they have at that spot.
Maybe Will Harris, he's been used at a lot of different spots. There's no unwillingness to hit with Will Harris. Maybe sometimes a little after the whistle, but you never know when a guy's going to develop. It happens. It happens later for some guys than it does for others.
Like Jameson Williams, James Mitchell, the tight end they selected in the 5th round, still battling a knee. I talked to him after practice. He said he really doesn't have a date, of when he expects to be back. He was hoping it was training camp. But another guy, when you watched him on tape in college, blocked really, really well. And you made the point when we were talking before this that when you look at him, he's not a big guy.
No.
He's not Dan Campbell. He's not even Hawk is, got some shoulders to him and a big guy.
No one's got Dan Campbell.
No one's got Dan Campbell's shoulders, but
geez.
that's not his body build. And you see why he made so many plays in the passing game. He looks like that kind of body type as a tight end, but he blocks pretty well. He's a pretty versatile guy as well, and he's a guy I can't wait to see when he gets back. He's hoping for training camp. Now he tore that ACL in I think week 3 of the college football season, so that's about the timeline there, the start of training camp. So you expect him back, and to see where he fits with T.J. Hawkinson and Brock Wright and some of the guys that they brought in. I think he's got a great opportunity to be one of those top 3 guys and earn himself some playing time.
Yeah, and with those 5 backup offensive linemen, by the way, with the Detroit Lions, those are pretty good players in there. Most of them, for the most part, and Matt Nelson can be a blocking tight,
right.
The guy who comes in does
the swing tackle,
calls himself eligible and all that.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any shortage of blocking for the Detroit Lions.
Now I know a guy that you wrote on following rookie minicamp practice on Saturday, Malcolm Rodriguez. Malcolm. I know he's a guy that you like, and we didn't get a chance to talk to him after the draft. He had a family commitment, so I was talking with somebody else. You wandered over and talked with Malcolm. What was the impression of talking to that young man, and maybe just how you see him fitting in Detroit's defense?
I think he'll run the next time he sees me because I wore him out. No, but I'll tell you what, here's a kid who was a 152-pound wrestler as a sophomore in high school in Wagoner, Oklahoma, and he finished second, and that motivated him. And so he gained 30 pounds, and he won two straight state wrestling championships in Oklahoma. One at 182 pounds. He put on 30 pounds in 1 year.
Jeez. Which
makes me wonder how much he lost to get to 152, by the way.
Right.
You know what wrestling's like. And then he got up to 195 as a senior, went off to college at Oklahoma State, and he played safety for 2 years, and then got moved to linebacker. And I think he's sort of been in that 212, 215, 221 range, something like that. They list him at 232. I think that's a little more than he weighs. I think he's more like the 226 range right now, but with room to grow. But, boy, you took a look at him athletically. I mean, I'm telling you.
He was a former quarterback in high school. All-state.
Yeah, this guy, he's got something. He's a 39.5-inch vertical jump. I mean, standing broad of, I think, almost, I forget exactly what it was, 13 feet or 12.
4'5", 240?
4'5", 240, yeah, absolutely. And look, they've got something there now. He is a little bit undersized, and he's never going to be more than, you can put on weight, but you can't put on inches. He's going to be 5'11" for his entire career.
Yeah.
But the linebacker that he's modeled himself after, and why not, is Bobby Wagner, 6 feet, 242. Well, that's a little bigger.
Yeah.
But when you're starting around the 230 range, a little means a lot.
One thing I noticed with Malcolm on Saturday is he was doing 7-on-7s, and Greg Bell, the running back out of San Diego State, quick guy, fast guy, did a kind of a wheel route and was down the sideline. Malcolm Rodriguez, excuse me, was running foot for foot, right with him, and the pass went incomplete. And I think you talk about him being undersized, but to me, when I watched Detroit's linebackers last year, the area I thought needed the most amount of improvement, and I thought Derek Barnes did improve from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, was just being able to play in space and the passing aspect of playing the linebacker position. I mean, that's such a targeted position now by offenses because of how dynamic the Alvin Kamaras and the Dalvin Cooks and the DeAndre Swifts are in the passing game, and some of these tight ends, and it's all a matchup game, and trying to get those guys against linebackers. And no offense to Alex Anzalone and some of the other guys here, but look, they're bigger, stronger, hold up more against the run than play in space, run, and cover linebackers. And so I think that's it. Am I wrong to think that's where Malcolm can maybe find a niche and be a third down guy and get onto the field earlier because of that speed, athleticism that you talked about? I also love that wrestlers know their body and how to control weight better than any other athlete ever. So I like that aspect about him too. Am I crazy to think he could get on the field early and play in space?
Well, you might be crazy, but that's not why. But no, I think I agree with you. And he made the point we were just talking to him. There's like 8 or 10 or 12 of us interviewing him, and he did make the point that playing the deep safety now, you get a broad look at the game, but the thing that you learn to do is cover.
Yeah.
Run and cover. And you talked about that play that you mentioned before, and you said you have to be quick and you have to be able to use your hands quickly too. And I think that seems to be an asset he has now. He said, "Look, I've got to make the roster." He didn't use the word roster, but I've got to make it on special teams and work my way into the linebacker room.
So he's smart too.
He's smart. He knows
the deal.
He knows what
he's my
up
sleeper
against.
Pick of rookies who I think could impact something
same
earlier
here.
than people think.
And I just like to add one thing about that: the safety, or not the safety, the conference he played in. I don't know if they ever ran the ball anymore. They must throw it 90 times a game, and so he certainly,
That's a good point.
It's like playing pitch and catch in practice.
Yeah.
Just play after play after play. So he certainly has to be, I would think, familiar with the passing game. Now, once again, it's college to pro, but it's those principles in college and pro in the passing game are more closely aligned now than they ever have been.
Fellow 6th-round pick, fellow linebacker James Houston started his career in Florida, transferred to Jackson State, and the interesting thing with him is that he was an off-the-ball linebacker at Florida. Most of the years he was there, and he goes to Deion Sanders, Jackson State, and he becomes a kind of more on-the-ball rush kind of guy, and had all these sacks and quarterback pressures and everything. But to me, it's interesting. The Lions are pushing him back off the ball. At least they were during rookie minicamp. We talked to Todd Wash, and he said that was probably the path that they were going to start him on, is to see if he can play that outside linebacker role, that Will or Sam. And I thought it was interesting with him too, for a guy who hadn't played off the ball in a year. He nearly made an interception Saturday in 7-on-7s. I thought he played pretty well in space. He's got pretty good speed for his size. He's a bigger guy because he could play on the ball at Jackson State, but he's an interesting one to me. And where the Lions are at linebacker, they've obviously got a lot of veteran guys there that have experience, but there's not that huge difference maker at this point. They're looking for those kind of guys. We talked about with Malcolm Rodriguez. Can James Houston be a difference maker at that linebacker spot, in your opinion?
Well, I think he's shown some pass rush skills now. What the competition he played against, the opportunities he had. Who knows, but if you have a specialty in the National Football League, there are places where it's absolutely vital. You can make a career out of it. One is pass rusher.
Yeah. One
is third down receiver out of the backfield, things like that. Let's not talk about kickers and punters and all that. But and if he is in the NFL, what he's been in college his last year, he's got a chance to make a career for himself.
And I think at the very least, if he's playing off the ball, Will or Sam, blitzer. He made a play Saturday as a blitzer where he disrupted a play too. And when you've got that year of being an on the line of scrimmage pass rusher and they move you back to the second level, you don't just lose those pass rushing skills.
No.
I think one way that he can be effective early on is maybe he's a third down guy as a blitzer. He can give them something. As a pass rusher, come up to the line of scrimmage, be a 2-point stand up kind of guy that comes after the quarterback here and there. But he's going to have to play in space. He's going to have to, if he's going to be a Will or Sam, I think he stands up really good against the run. It was encouraging that I saw him play pretty well in space on Saturday. He's going to have to improve kind of all those other skills outside of just being a pure passer. Because I just don't think that's how the Lions are going to use him.
If you're going to be a role player and you can add to it, that's a tremendous asset for both for the Lions and for yourself. And if he can play off the ball and rush the pass, then that puts a heck of a dilemma on the opposing offensive coordinator to call plays. Because let's just say, he's a pass rush first, and you don't know. But if you can put him in on third down or any passing down, and you're not sure if he's coming or not, that really adds a dimension to your defense.
No, that's a good point by you.
Makes problems for the offense. It
for
really
sure,
does.
100%. All right, last defensive guy to talk about, Chase Lucas.
Great interview.
Great interview.
Absolutely.
He has the Mike O'Hara interview approval. That's key. That's a key distinction among young guys.
He
is that if he becomes a favorite of Mike O'Hara, then
he was good though. Even
was he good?
He really was.
That's one I didn't get to.
Well, he's a 6-year player.
Yeah,
he played an extra year. I asked him about the NIL versus the NFL. He says, well, it's a lot better. The NFL is a lot better than the NIL, especially for guys like
smart
me.
Kid.
Yeah, he really was, but he is smart too.
Yeah,
and he played. he had the value for him was that the amount of time that he played with Herm Edwards as the head coach, played defensive back in the NFL.
NFL coaching.
12, 13 years, went into coach. He was an assistant coach, a defensive backfield coach, and then a head coach in the National Football League. Now he's taken those skills to college football at Arizona State, and he talked about how much he learned from him. And I think he played almost his entire sixth season as in the slot. So he's had a lot of experience in different positions at Arizona State. Now, we talk about a guy being a second-round pick for a reason. Guys are seventh-round picks for a reason, too.
Right, 100%.
But think about it, he's 24 years old already, and this is his shot.
Look, and he's going to get good coaching with Aubrey present.
Yes, he is.
And Aaron Glenn. I mean, those guys are Aaron Glenn obviously was an all-pro type player for
he was.
What, 12 plus,
I think
almost
he played 14 years.
15 years, something like that. He just knows the position, and Aubrey Pleasant is an up-and-comer. He's going to be a defensive coordinator sooner rather than later. They get a lot out of those young guys. We saw it last year with A.J. Parker, right? Jerry Jacobs, all those young guys, undrafted guys that just came in and were able to make an impact because in part because of the coaching that they received. So, look, he's a seventh-round pick. That's better than where A.J. Parker and Jerry Jacobs came in last year. And those guys, hashed out pretty good rookie years and are going to be impact guys. So, look, the kid's going to have an opportunity to compete and play, especially if he plays in the nickel. You like where A.J. Parker's at. Mike Hughes, the veteran who they signed, can play there as well. But I think that's more of an open spot. I think there's some pretty good competition on the outside between some vets and some young guys. But that nickel spot, I think if he can come in there and show that he can make plays from the nickel, I think there's an opportunity to at least make the team there.
And that position has grown in importance year by year by year. I mean, look, when they put out three receivers, you better have three good defensive backs. If they put out four, you better have four. And they play five. You just can't go, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
You've got to be able to cover. You can't. In the National Football League in this era, you can't win if you can't cover. Or whatever, however you do it, either by the pass rush, secondary, whatever. But you better be able to get off the field on third down in passing situations, or you can't win.
An important position. That's why Jeff Okuda and how he comes back, I think will be a huge storyline for this team.
And it's a kid you want to do well. I mean,
you do.
It's not lack of effort.
Because he's a good kid, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we covered the draft picks. Now, obviously, there's tryout players here. There's undrafted free agents that the team signed right after the draft. I'm just curious, watching Saturday, did anybody jump out at all to you?
Yeah, it's a kid from Central Michigan. Is it Khalil Pimpleton?
Pimpleton, yeah.
Central Michigan had a couple of guys drafted high, but on the offensive line, there was an offensive tackle, I think, if he wasn't a first-round pick, he was a second. Then they had a guard who might be the best of the group there. But in the third round, for some reason, Central Michigan is, well, I shouldn't say for some reason, because it's good football, period, is what it is. But he looked good, and I didn't see a lot of him because I wasn't watching all of that. But he's got a chance. He really does.
We're on the same wavelenth here. We do our observations, obviously.
I just say what you tell me
after every practice, and he was one of my observations because he stood out to me too. Now he's 5'8", 172. So he's a small guy. He's that Khalif Raymond type of body, but of the receivers who were there Saturday, to me, he stood out.
Yeah.
And he's cat quick. And where he really stood out to me is they did this special teams drill where the ball carrier started at one cone in the corner and the defender started at the other cone about 10 yards apart, and they had to basically make a move, try to tackle him.
Yeah.
He was so cat quick. I don't know if they got a hand on him. And even when he went straight line, I don't think they touched him. In 7-on-7s, he made a sliding catch, got up before anybody could touch him, and raced down the field. I thought he stood out among the receivers. But again, now that's a pretty deep receiver group now with DJ Shark and Jameson obviously coming in. I mean, you're talking about guys like Quintez Cephas, who was really good before he got hurt, now in that kind of bubble spot. So it's going to be tough for a guy. But look, if he's got some returnability, which he does, he was a dynamic kick and punt returner at Central. Just find your niche, right? Find a role. Be good at special teams. Be that number 2 guy behind Khalif Raymond as a punt returner, and then you never know what happens with injuries and whatever. You get your shot. But he was a guy that stood out, and I think if he can make plays here or there, I think he's at least got a shot to stick around practice squad or something like that and be a factor moving forward.
Well, look at a guy like Khalif Raymond. Look at his history. He's played an awful lot of places, and he's played pretty well. And he's a guy that if you have room for him on your roster, you've got a reliable National Football League professional football player.
One other name I want to throw out there for you guys, Obina Ezi. I believe I'm saying that right.
I'm a listener.
I think I've got it right. But the tackle from TCU.
Oh yeah, sure.
Michael, his arms almost drag on the almost 37-inch arms, 6'6", 321.
Yeah.
He was doing warm-ups, and his arms were longer than his shorts. And they almost went down to his knees. I mean, he has got terrific length. And those long arms, I just think, obviously, again, we're talking about a position group that's probably the most talented on the football team and probably the deepest. But to me, if his game can in any way match his physical, just his stature, I think that's a guy that maybe has a chance.
Well, when you say 37 inches, I think they really sort of the Mendoza line there is 34, and he exceeds that by, I mean, that's what they want, 34.
Just big, long
35,
arms.
36, 37. I think that's three more.
Nearly 37 inch.
Yeah.
I mean, those things are trees that he's dragging around on the side of them. And
wow.
He latches onto a defensive end. It'll be interesting to see. That's one guy I'm interested in watching as we go. Pimpleton as well. So there's a couple names for you guys as the veterans will join the rookies will join the veterans here in a week or two. And that's when we start to see really how good these rookies are, how quickly they can adapt to the veteran tempo, the veteran knowledge, the veteran skill set, because there's a big difference there.
And just one thing, last year, I don't think in rookie camp, I don't think they had a quarterback.
They had one.
Oh, now they have
now
one.
Connor Sampson, he could sling it a little bit.
Connor Sampson,
Western Illinois.
I was going to say
Oh, sorry.
Isn't that Tony Romo? Didn't Tony Romo go to Western, or was it Eastern Illinois?
Eastern, didn't he?
It was one or the other.
East, West.
East. Was it East?
There. All right. See our producer, TJ.
Somebody from Western Illinois
is correcting us.
Yeah, we don't claim him. We don't want him.
It was in Illinois. All
Yeah.
right. It was a small school out of Illinois. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Comparable.
I tried, right? Okay.
But he could sling it a little bit. It'll be interesting. I believe he was a tryout player, so kind of we'll see where that goes with him. But it'll be fun when the rookies that we talked about today join the vets. That'll be coming, like I said, in a week or two. And when that day comes, we'll have another podcast for you. I don't know if Mike's going to join me. I might have an assistant coach join me. But we'll be breaking everything down when the rookies finally join the vets. Thanks.
Well, tell the truth. The only reason I'm here this week is because somebody canceled, okay?
I would never. All right. We'll see you guys in the next episode.